So welcome everyone to your gentle yoga class. For this class, we have some props here, so you might like a belt or a bathrobe tie if you're at home, a couple blocks or a couple books, maybe a foam, maybe a large pillow or a bolster. And we'll get settled in here, so you can find a comfortable spot to sit, whether that be elevated on a pillow or a bolster, or maybe you just find a comfortable spot on the ground. And that could look like it's cross-legged, it could look like another posture as well. Just a place where you can find a long spine, and you could breathe easily. Give yourself a few moments here to settle in. And start to notice yourself supported on the ground. If it feels available to you, then you might start to bring your attention to one thing. So that one thing could be your breath. That one thing could be sound. Or maybe that one thing is the feeling of your body here, grounded and supported on the floor, or your props. Just something you can always come back to. And then follow a couple more moments, a couple more breaths. Now, if your eyes were lowered or closed, you might choose to keep them closed for a few moments, or if you feel ready to open your eyes, you could do that. And we'll just start to wake up through the head and neck a little bit. So whenever you're ready, you can start to lift your chin up, and then maybe take a breath in as you rise. And as you breathe out, you can lower your chin down towards your chest. It doesn't have to touch, just going in that direction. And a few more times like that. So inhale to lift up. And exhale, lowering down. And then you might notice that you have your own pace that feels natural to you, that you want to move to. Or maybe your breath is different than mine. We'll find a couple more just like that. Then the next time you lower your chin down, see if you could stay there just for a moment. And we'll add a little bit of rotation, so you can bring your gaze over to the right side, or your chin over to the right side. And then return back to center. So it's like you're drawing a quarter circle with your chin. And we'll try that a couple times. Maybe you inhale to rise. And exhale to lower. And then one more time, just like that. And come back to center. This time we'll try over to the left side. So you can draw a quarter circle over to the left. And then return back down to center. A couple more. Inhale to lift. And exhale, lower down. One more time, breath in. And breath out. Okay, this time bring your head up and we'll try a side bend, so right ear towards right shoulder. And then just check in, see how you're feeling here. You might stay exactly as you are. Or if you wanted to reach your left hand towards the floor or even tuck your left hand behind your back, you have those options there. And go to a place where you'd like to stay for 3 more breaths. And then gradually, when you feel ready, come on out. So you can bring your hand back around or back up if it's down. Bring your head back up, and then we'll switch over to the opposite side. And then check in on this side, see how you're doing. Maybe you stay here. You might choose to add on a different variation by reaching down to the floor or bringing your hand behind your back. And then staying for another full breath. Gradually start to unwind. Bring yourself back up. And then eventually you can start to shrug the shoulders a little bit up towards your ears. And then back and down. Maybe you take a breath in as you lift. And a breath out as you lower. And find 3 or 4 more just like that. Once you feel ready, you can start to let that go. And you can make your way onto your back. So if you have some stuff underneath you, you might move it out to the side. This is where your pillow might come in if you want to bring it under your head. And then once you're set up here, you can really feel the ground underneath you, underneath your hips, underneath your back, underneath your feet or your legs. And we'll just take 3 breaths here to settle down towards the floor and let ourselves arrive. And gradually, when you feel ready, you can start to bend your knees if they're not bent already, and land your feet on the ground. You'll find a windshield wiper, so rocking your knees over to your right side, then over towards your left side. And if you're following your breath, you might notice that you can take a breath in one way, maybe a breath up the other way. Or if your breath is really long, maybe 2 movements per 1 breath. Just go into your own pace, your own time. If you're feeling pretty good with the lower body, you could stay there. Or if you like, you could add your arms by reaching your hands towards the ceiling, holding opposite elbows, and then with your forearms across your chest, bring your elbows away from your knees, and then switch to the opposite side. And maybe you turn your head along with your arms, and then you're kind of like a zigzag, moving from side to side. Find find a couple more just like that. Still moving, still breathing. And then return back to center. From here, you can bring your right knee in towards your chest, either by holding behind your knee or around your shin, just depending on how it feels in your knee. And if you can't quite reach, you can always use a belt to extend your reach here. Now, if you want to find a little bit of movement with your right ankle, you might choose to do that. And if you're feeling pretty good as you are, you can stay here, or maybe you reach your left leg out long as you pull your right leg in towards your chest just a little bit. And we'll take 3 breaths. So settling in here for a little while. And then gradually you can make your way into a twist. So you can hold your right knee with your opposite hand and guide your whole right leg and hip up and over towards the left side. So you're coming onto the outer edge of your left hip, and your right arm could reach out to the side. And if it feels okay in your neck, you might even look out to the side as well. If you need a little bit of support for your back or your hip area, you could bring a bolster or a block under your right leg on the left side. And then do your best to follow 3 more full breaths. Gradually make your way out so you can bring your head back up if it's turned. Bring your leg back up slowly. Land your right foot down, your left foot down. Now if you wanted to stay in stillness for a couple breaths, you could just stay right here, or maybe you find a windshield wiper from side to side. So your choice. Then eventually come back to center, and we'll switch to the left side. So you can bring your left knee in towards your chest. Again, you might hold behind the knee or around the shin, or maybe you use a prop here. If you did circles with your ankle on the first side, then maybe you add that in here. And then if you haven't gone the other way yet, you might go the other way. Then check in with your hips and your lower back. So if you're feeling really spacious around the lower back, you might choose to stay here with your right leg bent. Or maybe you reach your right leg out long. And then follow a few breaths. One more long breath in. And a full breath out. Gradually making your way into that twist so you can release the grip of your leg and then hold on to your knee with your right hand. Bring your whole left leg up and over to the right side, turning on to the right hip and the outer right thigh. And again, you can use a little bit of support here if that feels good. You might even turn your head to the left, reaching out to the left side with your left arm. And then see if you can use the breath to expand through the waist as you inhale. And soften as you breathe out. One more long breath. And a full empty. And then gradually make your way back up. This time you can choose to stay in stillness with both feet down, or if you wanted to bring both knees now in towards your chest, you could give that a try. And we'll be here for about 4 or 5 breaths. So wherever you are to integrate those sides is okay. Whether it's stillness or whether it's movement. And gradually, when you feel ready, you can roll on over to your side. So you could have your knees bent, hips flexed, and then roll on over. Your head could be supported by your bottom arm. And then take 3 or 4 breaths right here. Now here's the hard part. You can start to make your way up to tabletop, so you can press into the floor. Come on up. I'm not sure why my music stopped. I think I have too much technology for for my capacity, but it's okay. So we'll get set up with on hands and knees or hands and fists, and if you like a little something under your knees, you could put that in. And we'll find cow, so you can start to lift your hips, lower your belly down, reach your chest forward, take a breath. And then as you exhale, tuck your hips under, around your spine, let your head be heavy. Alternate that a few times so you can inhale, reach forward, and exhale, round under. And then maybe you start to match your movement with your breath. So if you're going faster or slower than me, that's okay. You can just really be intentional with your movement and your breath. And we'll find 3 more each way. And then gradually, when you feel finished with that, you can make your way down to either puppy or child's posture. So puppy, your hips could be high above your knees and your forearms could land down. Your head might land down towards the floor or your arms. Or if you feel like you want to slide your hips a little bit closer back towards your heels, then you'd be in more of an extended child's posture. Now if you try it and it feels like your belly's compressed, you could always bring your knees a little wider. And here I'll invite you to stay for about 4 or 5 breaths. And you might notice that as you change your posture around, you change your body around, you might feel different sensations. You might feel your breath in different areas of the body. And take one more long breath here. And let the breath go out. Now if you're feeling quite comfortable here, you could stay in the middle. Or if you wanted to add a side bend, you could walk your hands, your torso, your head over to the right side. So then you're adding a side bend in here as well. Following 3 more breaths. Then eventually come on back to center, and we'll try out the other side. So you can walk yourself over to your left. You might go towards the edge of the mat or even off the edge of the mat. Your head could be on the floor or on one of your arms or a prop. Once again, connecting to 3 full, steady breaths. This time you can come back up to center and then rise up to tabletop. So if your knees are wide, you can walk them in. And then get steady in your foundation. We'll come into a table rotation, so you can bring your right hand behind your head. So you're gonna make kind of like a little chicken wing out to the side. And your elbows bent. So you're going to press into your left hand or left fist and twist your torso a little bit to the right. Take a breath. And then eventually come back to the starting point. And we'll try that a couple times. So pressing down, turning, take a breath. And exhale, come back. One more time, just like that. Inhale. And exhale. Now, if you want, you could even reach out your arm this time, maybe even up. Take a breath. And then exhale, thread the needle. So you can scoop your right arm under opposite arm and your right ear comes down towards the floor. If this feels like too much for your neck or your shoulder, you could actually come up to a seat and do the same thing. So you would bring your right arm across the chest with your opposite hand. And I'll invite you to stay here for 3 or 4 more breaths. You have a little bit of time. When you're ready to release from this stretch, if you're down on the ground, you can start to press into your left hand, press the floor away, come back up, and then land your right hand down. We'll switch to the opposite side, so coming into table rotations on the second side, left hand behind the head, and then as you inhale, twist, exhale, come back. Again, inhale, rotate, open to the left, exhale, return. One more time, inhale, and exhale. Now your choice, you could stay there, or maybe this time you reach your left arm out or up, take a breath. Exhale, thread the needle, second side, scooping your left arm under opposite arm and coming onto your left ear. And then same thing, if you want to take pressure out of your neck here, you can come up to a comfortable seat and do like a cross body stretch. So you can hold your left arm with opposite hand. And then wherever you are, follow 3 or 4 breaths. Going to a place where you feel a stretch, but it's a breathable stretch. And then give yourself time to come out. So press into your right hand and start to unwind. Land everything back down. And we'll find a few rounds of cow and cat again. So you can inhale, sway your belly. Exhale, round your spine. Inhale, lengthen forward. Exhale, puff up between your shoulder blades. And then find 3 at your own pace each way. So you might stay one way a little bit longer. Maybe find your own style. And then one more round. Eventually come back. This time we'll make our way into a low lunge. So if you feel like you might need a little bit of space for your torso and your arms, you could bring your hands on blocks as an option. And you might have a foam under your left knee. Right foot comes forward, so you can press into your left hand and bring your right foot forward. And if you need to pick up your foot and get it there, that's okay. All right. And then once you're here, we'll find a bit of rotation through the spine. So you can press into your left hand or left hand on block. Other hand comes to your front bent leg. And you can twist your chest to the right side, so belly goes towards front thigh. And here there's a little bit of balancing happening. Now if you're feeling pretty good here, pretty stable, you might stay here, or maybe you reach your right arm up. If it feels okay on your neck, you could also look up as well. Sometimes my neck feels a little grumpy, so I don't. We're still keeping steady in the front leg and back knee. And a couple more breaths right here. Eventually start to unwind. Land your hand down. This time we'll make our way into a bit of a stretch, so you can shift your hips a little bit further forward and then shift your hips back as you straighten your front leg. So it's a bit of a hamstring stretch here. And then maybe you take a breath in one way and a breath out the other way. And again, just kind of feeling it out. So you could have a tiny small movement, or maybe it's a little more generous. And a couple more rounds, just forward and back. So we're easing in. And eventually we'll find a stretch where you might like to stay a little bit longer, so you can start to bring your front foot a little further forward. And if you feel like kind of blocked in here, that's when blocks become in handy, so that you have a little more space. I don't like using the same word multiple times in one sentence, but here we are. Now, you could stay here. You might start to bring your knee a little more towards straight, but you don't have to. You might even flex your toes up towards your right kneecap. If you're feeling a stretch in your calf, in your hamstrings, then stay here. But maybe you fold. So bending from the hips and folding maybe farther forward. And then follow 3 or 4 more breaths. Then gradually, if you're folded forward, you can take a breath, lengthen through your spine. And if you had your foot pretty far forward, you can start to slide your right foot back. And then land your knee down. Once you feel stable here, step your left foot forward. Maybe you pick it up and get it forward. Yeah. And then we'll find a bit of a twist here. So you can press into your right hand or right hand on block. Opposite hand goes to left thigh. And then you can start to turn your chest a little bit out to left side. And just feel it out. Notice how your balance is. Notice how it feels on your torso. And you might choose to stay right here. Or if you like, you can reach your left arm out or up. Still keeping grounded in your foundation. Still breathing. And if you really liked looking up the first time, maybe you do that again. Okay. And take another breath. And then eventually unwind. We'll come into that stretch on the second side, so hands could land down to floor or blocks. And then we'll start by shifting the pelvis a little farther forward, bending your front knee a little more, and then shifting your hip back and straightening your knee. And again, your knee doesn't have to be fully straight as long as you're feeling a stretch in the back of your front leg. It's all good. And again, just moving and breathing. Maybe you coordinate your movement with your breath. And a couple more just like that. Eventually settle into a spot where you feel a nice stretch and you can stay for a little while. So you might walk your left foot a little farther forward. If you have blocks and your hands are really far forward, you can bring your hands and blocks under your shoulders. And start to straighten your front knee. It doesn't have to be fully straight. Maybe you flex your toes up towards your kneecap. And if this is enough, stay right here. Now, if you haven't already and you want to try bending forward from your hips over your front leg, you might try it. If you try something that doesn't work, you can always change your mind. And a couple more breaths wherever you are. All right, and then you can start to come back up with your torso if you're folded. Bring your left heel under the knee, and then we'll step up to ragdoll. So you might actually step up from here, so your feet could walk forward, Or if it works better for your body, to bring your knee back and then kind of come into a squat so hands could go back towards your feet. And then go to where you feel good. So you might have support with your forearms on your thighs or hands on blocks. You might just be dangling forward. So we're using gravity to help make a little bit of space through the backs of the legs. Now if you're here and your neck feels a little bit tight, then sometimes it's nice to sway your head gently from side to side. Or you might even choose to bend one knee a little more generously and alternate sides so then your hips start to sway. And then finding just a couple more breaths. This time, you can really ground down into your feet. Start to make your way up halfway, so your hands can be to blocks or to shins or to knees. Take a breath. Stay for the breath out. And then come up to extended mountain. So feet pressed down, arms could rise up. Inhale, reach. Maybe you look up if it feels okay in your neck. And then as you exhale, hands come down. All right, so we'll try a few sun breaths here. So whenever you're ready, you can inhale, reach your arms up, either forward and up or out to the sides and up. And then as you exhale, hands come down through the center of your chest. Inhale, expand, reach. Exhale, float down. Breathing in, rise up. Breathe out, lower down. Now, if you're feeling pretty good with just the arms, you can definitely stay with that the whole time. Or if you wanted to add your legs this time, you could send your hips back and down as you bend your knees. And arms go down, and then straighten your legs as you reach up. So just an option. If you feel like it's too much or if it's just overheating, then don't worry about it. And we'll try that 5 times. Whether the arms or the legs or both. Starting to find your own breath, your own pace. And then just about one more time. Eventually you can reach up for extended mountain and then make your way into a crescent moon side stretch. So left hand comes down to hip or thigh and lean over towards your left. And then choose a spot where it feels good on your waist here, on your neck. Following just a couple more breaths. Gradually, when you're ready to rise, press into your feet, come up. Left arm rises, other arm goes down. Keeping the connection with your feet and the floor as you open up through the waist. And take a couple breaths. When you're ready to rise, press into your feet, come on up, and lower your arm down. All right, and I'm gonna find my belt. So we'll come into Thai dance and I'll walk you through that. Now, if you have a belt with like a metal piece, just make sure you're holding on to that piece so you don't hit yourself in the head. And unless it's really, really long and then just kind of like dragging on the floor, but otherwise we'll just get set up with the belt out long. And feet are about hips distance apart and your arms are about hips or shoulder distance apart. And then whenever you're ready, you can start to reach your arms up as you take a breath and lift the belt up overhead. And then as you exhale, everything lowers down. And you can just kind of take note of how that feels in your shoulders as you inhale to rise and exhale to lower. Trying that a couple more times. So some days this will feel easier, some days it might feel a little more challenging. And only go to where your shoulders feel good today. So you could go up, maybe you stay where you feel good, maybe you start to widen your grip and then go behind you a little, or maybe a lot, but it really depends on the day. And if you ever feel stuck, just know that you can drop the belt. So you're not necessarily stuck. And we'll try that again, so you can reset the grip, reach your arms, take your breath to where you feel a nice stretch. It could be lower or higher than me. And then on your next inhale, rise up. And exhale, lower down. Okay. And then again, reaching on up. And lowering down. Inhale, lift. And exhale, lower. Now this time you can choose if you want to use the belt or not. We'll come into Yoga Mudra arms. So you might bring the belt behind your back and hold on to it. You might bring your hands to opposite elbows, or if you wanted, you could clasp your hands. Either way, you're going to start to reach your elbows or your knuckles behind you. If you're already feeling a stretch throughout your chest, throughout your arms, you could stay right there. Or if you wanted to add on, you can find a bit of a back bend by puffing your chest a little forward, a little up. You might choose to stay here with your chest towards your chin, or maybe you look up as well. Go to a place where you can maintain 3 full breaths. And your legs stay grounded and steady. To come out, press into your feet. Start to wake up your core a little bit. Bring your chest back, your shoulders back. Relax the arms and bring your head back up. And if you had the belt, you can bring it out to the side. Okay. Yeah, sometimes it's nice just to shake it out a little bit so you can reach your shoulders up towards your ears and back and down. Sometimes I'll even just do one at a time. And then eventually start to let that go. And then come back to center. We'll make our way into a warrior posture. So you can walk your feet out a little bit wider towards the right, long edge of your mat. And then from here, you can lift your left toes. And we'll do warrior 2 on the left side. So you're going to pivot on your heel and then face your toes forward. And then your arms could reach out like a capital T. And this is more of like a stance where you're on a bit of a tightrope, but if you feel like it's better for your hips or your lower back to bring heel to heel, that's fine too. And your front knees going along with your front ankle, your front toes. So here we're building up a little bit of heat, a little bit of stamina. And you might even look over your left fingertips if it feels all right on your neck, if you haven't already. And a couple more breaths. From here, you can start to straighten your front leg and come into reverse triangle. So you can flip up your left hand, lean towards your back leg, and you might need to move your hips a little bit so you don't feel so stuck. So often if I'm leaning back, I'll bring my hips a little more centered. Now you could look out or maybe look up to your top hand. Your back hand could be to your hip or thigh, whatever feels more supportive. And your feet are still grounded as you find a lot of length through the left side. Okay. And then one more breath. All right, and then eventually we'll come on out. Lower your arm down. This time, lift your left toes, pivot on your heel, toes face outward just for a moment, and then lift your right toes, pivot on that heel, and then you're gonna face to the other side of your mat. So once you feel steady here, bend your front knee. And then the arms could reach out. And if you like, you could look over your right fingertips. So we have a little bit of steadiness, a little bit of ease, but also a little bit of work here. Keeping the breath continuous. Just a couple more breaths. Then eventually you can start to straighten your front leg this time. Flip up your right palm towards the ceiling, lean back. So your hand could be on your left thigh or your left hip, or if you know a different variation, you can add that in. Noticing where you have that stability and also where you have some space. And a couple more breaths. Okay, this time ground down into your feet. Rise up, lower your arms down. You can lift your right toes, pivot on your heel, and then if you might need a block, this is where it might come in handy, or sometimes two blocks. So you can bring them towards the center of the mat. Sometimes I just use one. And then you can start to point your toes slightly inward. And we'll find a wide-legged forward fold. So you can start by bending from your hips and then reaching your chest forward, folding over your legs. And it really can be any amount. So you might stay up quite high with hands on thighs. You might bring your hands down towards a block on any level. If you have long arms, maybe you touch the floor. And then keep in mind, if you were feeling a lot of stretch in the backs of the legs earlier on the floor, you might need to bend your knees a little bit here as well, and that's okay. So the upper body is a little bit like ragdoll, where there's some length, there's some space, and the feet are still grounded. Now, if you have a block handy and you can touch the floor, maybe bring your head on the block instead. Or maybe even like a stack of blocks. We'll be here for about 3 or 4 more breaths, so a little bit longer. Now, sometimes when you're here for a while, it feels like the connection to legs is a little bit numb. So if you feel like your legs are quite wide, you can walk them in a little bit and press into your feet. Start to make your way up halfway. So your hands could be on blocks on a higher level, or maybe you bring your hands up the legs, eventually towards the hips. Take a breath. And a long empty. Press down into your feet. Rise up. Take a breath here. Okay, and then you can, this time, point your toes outward. It's like you know what we're doing. Okay. So we'll find Goddess. You can bend your knees. Squatting your hips down. And then eventually, if you like, you could even bring your hands to heart center and clasp your hands. We'll do Goddess with breathing hands. So you can start to reach your knuckles forward. Take a breath, reach your arms up, straighten your legs. And then as you exhale, let go of the grip, hands go by sides, and then start to squat down again. And just go to where you feel strong and in control. So it could be a little bit of a squat, it could be a bigger one. If you ever need support, you could even bring your hips by a wall. It's almost like a reverse wood chopper here. Let's try that 3 more times. Nice, last one. Whew, holy legs, okay. This time you can reach up, arms come down, step your feet in, you might even heel toe your feet in. And then find your feet just slightly wider than hips. So we'll come into standing swinging twist here. Your arms can just dangle by your sides. And then you can pivot on your left toes face the right and then switch. And just let your arms go. And sometimes that feels nice on the back, on the shoulders. Whoops. You might run into stuff. And a couple more each way. And then eventually you can make your way back to center. Is anyone dizzy? If you're dizzy, then we won't balance, okay? But if you feel ready, we can try balancing star. If you ever need to go by a wall, you can do that. Or if you ever need to step off your mat, if it's thick, you could also do that for balance. So we'll start on the right foot, and other foot goes out to the side. Arms could reach out to more of a capital T, and you might just need to feel it out if you're using a wall, how far you need to be. Now you could stay with toes down, or maybe you lift your toes up. And then if you have your toes up, see if you can rotate from your hips so your toes point forward as your foot flexes. And then you might feel a little more work on the outer thigh happening. Maybe. We'll take three breaths. And then eventually you can start to bring your leg down if it's up. Your arms come down. You can shake out the feet a little bit or shake out the shoulders. And then we'll try opposite sides. So if you're using a wall, you can bring your standing leg towards the wall. And you might reach out. And then this time, right toes go out. Arms could reach. Maybe you stay here. If you want to try it, you can lift your toes. Sometimes you need to find the right spot on the floor if you have a wonky floorboard. And then if you're lifting the toes, you can flex the toes towards your kneecap and then turn from your hips so your toes point forward. And then 3 more breaths. Last one. Whew. And then eventually you can land it all down. Shake it out a little bit. Okay. And we'll try tree. So you can press into your right foot and then turn your hip out to the side. You can have a kickstand with your toes down, heel above opposite ankle. If you want to go higher with your foot, you could. And then choose arms that work for you where you might feel some challenge, but you're in control. So it could be low, medium, or high. And then we'll set the gaze steady on something that doesn't move. 3 breaths. Great. Arms can come down. Knee goes forward, and then foot lands. It's always when you're like, oh yeah, I'm actually pretty good at this, and then you start like wobbling. Never mind. Sometimes you just have to balance to stay humble. And we'll try the other side. So left foot presses, bending the knee, turning your right knee out to the side from your hip. And again, you might stay here, with foot a little lower, or you might go higher. And then check out, see which arms you want. Okay. And then once you're settled, we'll stay for 3 breaths. All right. And then eventually, you can start to come on out. Land your feet down, and we'll come into standing swinging twist again. So your feet can go a little wider, arms dangle, and we'll just pivot over to the right side and then switch to the left. Now if your arms are long and you want to tap your hips as you go around, sometimes that's fun, just to make sure they're still there. That's a nice little pat on the back or the hips. Follow a couple more each way. And then eventually slow it down and return to center. Okay. And we'll make our way down to the floor. So however you need to get there is fine. We'll take a seat with the legs out in front. So if you need blocks, you can definitely do that to come down. And here you might want a bolster towards the right side, or your pillow, or even a block, or maybe all of the stuff, just in case. And then we'll start with the hands behind and knees bent, and we'll do a seated windshield wiper. So you can rock your knees over to the right side and to the left side. Okay. And the next time you go to the right side, see if you can land down there. Now, if you need to get your knees or your legs back on the mat, you can do that. Some people even like to face the side. And then we'll just notice how this feels. Now, this is a posture called deer. If you wanted to go into sleeping deer, you can bring your bolster or supports over to the right side, and your hands are on either side of your front knee. Now, you could bend from your hips and fold over your knee or over your right thigh. I feel typically better over my knee, but it might be more of an individual thing, so check with yourself, see how you're doing. And then eventually you might lay yourself down on top of your supports, or you might have your head on a block. And I'll invite you to stay here for about 10 breaths, wherever you are. And then notice your next breath in. And let it go out. Give yourself time and start to press down into your forearms, press into your hands, walk your way back up. You can lean over towards your right leg a little bit and swing your left foot around. Your right foot lands down. Now, if you have your supports, you can bring them on over to the left side. This time, knees drop over to the left. And then check in, see how you're doing here. Maybe you stay up. Maybe you lean forward from your hips over your left knee or left thigh. And if you're not sure, you can try either one and see how it goes. Once you've given yourself time to find a good spot, I'll invite you to stay for about 10 breaths. Stay for one last breath here. And if you're folded forward, you can gradually come back up. So pressing into the floor, walking your way back up. This time you can bring your right foot around, your left foot around. If you wanted to just kind of shake out the legs a little bit, sometimes it's nice, or some people like to bounce the legs a little bit. From here we'll come into a seated butterfly if you like. So sometimes I feel a little stuck in my hips and kind of rounded, so that's when you would add a little bit of elevation under your seat. And then you can bring your feet towards each other, knees go wide. Now if you feel like this is kind of intense, sometimes it is, you can bring blocks under your knees. Or a bolster. Now if you're getting a great stretch into your inner thighs, into your hips, into your back, you could stay exactly as you are. If you want to try bending from the hips and folding forward, then maybe you give that a go. So sometimes I'll hold on to my ankles, or sometimes I'll give my feet a little press. Or you might bring your hands down to the floor or blocks. Go to where you'd like to stay for 5 more breaths. And eventually give yourself time, press into your hands. If you're folded forward, bring your torso up, take a breath. Sometimes I'll bring my legs up with my hands. And then from here you can bring your hands behind you, and sometimes it's nice just to lean back into the hands and start to puff up the chest a little bit. You could stay here if this feels great around your neck, or if you wanted to look up, you could. If your neck feels really great, letting your head hang back behind you, you could give that a try. But if it feels like too much, then don't worry about it. So we're just checking in, going to where you feel supported and you feel pretty good. And you can breathe. Okay. Give yourself another breath. Now if your head's behind you, you can bring it up less. You're going to walk your hands towards your hips, come back up with the torso, and then the head and shoulders come up last. Sometimes you get like a head rush. So from here, you can make your way down to the floor. And if you wanted something under your head, you could do that. We'll do a little twist and then kind of wind it down. And I'll go turn off the lights so they're not so bright. So once you're here down on the ground, you can have your knees bent. Arms might go out wide to a capital T or a cactus arm. And your knees could drift over towards the right side. If it feels okay in your neck to turn your gaze over to the left, you might add that in. Eventually check in with 3 or 4 slow, steady breaths. Eventually, bring your head back, gradually bring your knees back to center, and then switch over to your opposite side. So knees go left, gaze might stay as is or turn to the right. 3 or 4 breaths right here. Eventually unwind, come back to the middle. And if you feel like you need anything between now and your final resting posture, you could add that in. So that could be putting a bolster or a pillow under your knees. If your feet are cold, you could put some socks on or a sweater on if you happen to have it. And I'll get comfortable. I'll find a seat. I'll sit up just to watch the time, but you can get comfortable down on the ground. Here you might choose to keep your eyes open and soft, or maybe you close them all the way. Here you can allow the body to accept the support of the ground. You don't really have to do much. If you find following your breath supportive, stay with that. Or otherwise, you might find that you can let your mind be at ease and wander around a little bit. I'll give you a few minutes of quiet so you can integrate your day and your practice. Again, to notice where your attention was placed. And then gently guide it back to your body, to your breath, to this moment. And if you like, you can start to wake up a little bit throughout your fingers, throughout your toes, gradually adding some small movement back. And eventually finding some movement throughout your arms or legs or even head. And then when you're ready here, you can gradually make your way over to your side and take a couple breaths. And then come up towards a comfortable seat, giving yourself some time. Thank you for being here. I bow in honor of you. Namaste.